it was a bit of a joke for a while. It was called the wellness policy,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then it was very much kind of focused on as being something about steroids and not taking steroids in pro wrestling, which is a whole other debate as to their use and as to the point of them. But ultimately, kind of my where I summed it up was that steroids in a competitive environment are terrible because they're giving you an unnatural edge against a competitor. In wrestling, when it's about how you're presenting yourself, you're not unfairly getting an advantage on someone. So it can be like, it's not quite
and also
as
coming back to what
morally
I said,
dubious.
Dave. Coming
Not
back to
healthy, but
what I
it's not
said.
morally. Yeah.
Sorry, man, didn't mean to speak over you. Just saying regarding the steroids as well. Yeah, most of the top athletes have been done for them at some point in time. Nandrolone, which of course, rebuilds connective tissue and things. They give it in the hospitals and what have you. And okay, they're sourcing it on the black market. But again, if it's keeping you going, if it's keeping you doing what you love, if it's keeping you in one piece and ticking over, my personal feeling is if it's done like anything else in this life with moderation and sort of attention, then it's not a bad thing. But again, like you said, that's a whole nother bag of tin of worms we don't want to open. But again, it's another very easily slippery slope. But you've got all these different factors involved, so it doesn't really surprise me that there's a massively high mortality rate in professional wrestling. I mean, it's a dangerous gig at the end of the day. It's a hard gig.
So that's saying the wellness policy that WWE put in place and how they treat their athletes now and the expectations of them. I'm hoping that what you'll see is a generation of wrestlers who don't die quite as young. You start seeing the positive effects of this. Like it's stuff like so the old timers now do we do rehab for them having problems and they look after them, even though they're not necessarily kind of employees anymore. They're aware that kind of damage and the problem they're going through is a result of the sacrifices they made for the company in the past. But I think what in terms of like the difficulties of being a pro wrestler, and for me, and what I would like to keep an eye on is that so the wellness policy is in place, and initially it was all like steroid checking and this, that, and the other, but now it's also very much about like health and well-being and mental health and making sure that the wrestlers are okay. But if they've taken away the crutches of the things like the painkillers and keeping an eye on the guys, making sure they're not doing anything, it's going to go like short-term gains with long-term damage, so to speak. But they've not necessarily done anything to remove the reason why people were doing that. So the schedule's the same, the expectations on people's bodies are the same. Although, again, I can go into this big, massive whole conversation about the presentation of a professional wrestler and how I feel it ties into the presentation of action stars. If you go back to the 80s and you look at all the top action stars, 6'5", 250 plus pounds, walls of muscle. And then you look at, then the Matrix becomes a thing. And suddenly it's about being lean and fast moving. And then there's that big thing. And again, the idea of what a professional wrestler is changes. It's always a couple of years behind, but it flows.
I've got to say, just jumping back to what I said about Hoist Gracie, I think Hoist Gracie in the first ever couple of UFCs, I think he was, I said about him being one of the most influential martial artists in the last 100 years, him, Ken Shamrock, Bruce Lee, arguably. Hoist more so because he was the man. But I mean, I think that's, again, seeing that changed the public perception. And I think after that, after you saw Hoist tear through people in the first 3 UFCs, and the guy was like 13 stone. He's not as big as me. He's a little taller. He's not my build. I know. I've trained with him. He was absolutely badass. And he was tearing people apart. And then I honestly think that in particular was like the the sort of the public kind of focal point, and it became a bit of a turning point in all sorts of pop culture where you like you say, you got Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, and it was about a much more sort of lean, understated kind of it was about the technique, it was about the mastery. It wasn't necessarily, like you say, about being a wall of muscle and 8 foot tall and being this physical, dominant, subhuman, sort of superhuman beast. Yeah, I think he had a lot to do with that, changing those sort of perceptions publicly, and it went all the way through pop culture, like you said. So yeah, you've got that in WWE now as well, definitely. You got much smaller, more athletic guys that become the sort of the focal point. And generally, like, let's be honest, the actions are like a billion times better, isn't it? You know, with that being the case, on the whole.
Yeah, the athleticism is amazing because again, like when you're 6'5" and wall of muscle, you can't move. There's only so much you can do without snapping something. So like as the guys have kind of got leaner and smaller, their ability. But again, I think it's also like 6'5" wall of muscle guy walks out and everyone goes, oh, you pay attention to him. So as the wrestlers have got smaller and leaner, what they need to do to get people's attention, I feel, has become more risky, so to speak. Like that, I think there's always, you know, like there's always that kind of payoff. Like to be a WWE wrestler, to be a professional wrestler and successful, you need to do something or be something out of the ordinary. And if you can't physically be out of the ordinary, then what you do in the ring needs to be in it. I think it kind of snowballs from there, really. So yeah, I think there's be interesting to see how kind of people adapt and how the industry adapts now that the focus isn't necessarily on people's physicality and more on kind of their personas.
Okay, and we are starting to wrap this up. It's been a phenomenal chat. I do just want to. I touched on it earlier, but we didn't really quite look into it. But I wanted to, ask someone in the business, how do you feel that WWE sort of worldwide expansion has sort of hit the wrestling business in the UK? Do you feel it's helped or hindered? I mean, to me, from the outside, it seems to have helped because, you're seeing WWE UK, with all the trimmings. And a lot of these guys are then flying over the States and you see them popping up on NXT and Raw and everything else like that. And then they're coming back and they're wrestling in the local town hall. And it's almost like that seal of approval from the industry standard. I personally think that it's helped with the credibility of sort of independent promotions and raised the interest. Do you think that this could lead to sort of a resurgence to the point where we might see something akin to the heydays in the 70s where you got millions tuning in on TV and British wrestling really pops back? Do you have a completely different take on it? How do you think that that's affected things?
It's definitely put the cat amongst the pigeons, I'll tell you that. So again, late 90s, early 2000s, British wrestling's on its back legs. It's a bit of a joke. It's done by weirdos in working men's club, and no one really pays much attention. And then like a whole generation of wrestlers kind of around the same time that I got involved, we were like, no, we want to do something special. We want to be seen on that platform. So a lot of people went out of their way and a lot of promotions popped up. A lot of people went out of their way to kind of try and do their best to present it as something with credibility. And then over time, the WWE kind of expansion at NXT started. And we could do like a whole hour talking about why NXT was designed for, what it was, and ultimately what it is back in the day there was WWE and there was WCW and there was lots of independent wrestling, and WWE could bring in someone from someone else's company and instantly they'd be credible, they'd be seasoned, they'd know what they're doing, and they'd have a following. I can remember the day Jericho arrived on WWF at the time and being like, oh my god, this is amazing. And those moments were gone. They got to a point where they basically said we can make anyone a star, and then they ran everyone else out of business, and so everyone coming to WWE was coming up through their training, and then none of them was sticking around. They were hiring other athletes and models and people from outside of wrestling to come and learn to be wrestlers, and those people were like, oh, thank you for the platform, but I don't want to do it anymore, bye. So they weren't getting people who grafted for it and earned it and who came to it with passion. So they weren't getting people really sticking around beyond John Cena and a couple of people like that. I think they realized very quickly that what they needed was a system where they could get people in front of crowds, get people seasoned, get people working, and build followings and personas. So they created their own indie promotion, NXT UK. That's what NXT should say was their own indie promotion. It was their own version of a Ring of Honor. And that's literally it. They mixed a bunch of the TNA guys, a bunch of the Ring of Honor guys, smushed them together, some of the developmental guys, bam, and here's this. And it's all done with like a little asterisk next to it. This is NXT. This is where people are cutting their teeth. It's not necessarily raw, so treat it kindly. But here we go. And then they were doing different things and being interesting. And for my money, it was the most interesting show they were doing for a very, very long time.
I loved it. I still do love it. Yeah. And just coming back to your boy Jack Gallagher, he's on NXT in the Cruiserweight tournament this week. I think that's so. Just
Right.
go on.
There you go. See, yeah, he's made it over there. And then again, like there was a bunch of kind of the British promotions they started to excel and get a lot of attention. There was one called Progress who's doing really well.
Yeah.
There was one up in Scotland called ICW that had this very kind of ECW feel to it, and that was getting a lot of attention and stuff. And I think they saw that and they were like, right, so we've created our own American indie. Let's do the same over here. And it's basically just this ready-made pipeline for them now of people who can graduate up classes. And you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a stamp and it's a training. And it's like, you're in NXT UK. And once you've really made a name for yourself there and you've got a following and people are interested in bringing you onto NXT, which is what's happening with a tag team called the Grizzled Young Veterans.
Yeah.
So again, it's guys from the Northwest, James Drake and Pat Gibson.
Yeah, now I've seen him wrestle on your shows loads of times. He's a great wrestler. And
yeah, Zach and JD and James Drake are both from
Jake as well. I've seen him on your shows as well. Yeah, both of them now you mentioned.
And they do really well at NXT UK. And yeah, so they're moving up and they were doing the I think it was the Dusty Classic, and which is the big tag team tournament, and then they're probably going to see them more in NXT. And then I'm sure they'll do well there. They're two of the best guys in wrestling I know, and they're fantastic. So they're going to go far. And I think it's only a matter of time until you see them popping up at WrestleMania or something crazy like that. But they've created these pathways. So in terms of what it's done for British wrestling, it's created a credible pathway. Someone can go to a school, we come to train at Future Shock Wrestling. We have 4 different people who work for WWE that have come through this school. It's a very real possibility that if you do well, you can be seen and move on. And it's doing that. It's created a UK, like a legitimate pinnacle of UK indie wrestling. But it means that there's a lot of people who would maybe like to go and watch UK indie wrestling who can now watch it on a Wednesday afternoon online. So not as many people are going to the shows, but then in the same breath, maybe more people are because there's someone they know on the poster. So I think at this point, it's unbalanced things, and we'll see where it lands when it's balanced out. Because again, like going into like the politics of wrestling, the guys who work for NXT UK are going to want more money to perform on the indie shows now. So the wage bill for the promoters goes up, but then has the gate gone up or has the gate gone down? And has it got long term? Are people going to come back to your show if the NXT guys aren't on it next time? Like, how are you going to balance that out? And so it's so much took to stone in, and it's still rippling, and we'll see how it sells when things have changed. But there's a lot of moving parts. But I think that ultimately, for wrestlers, it's good because there's a pathway for wrestlers. For British wrestling, I don't know. We'll see. But it can't have people paying attention.
Well, definitely they're paying attention. Well, listen, mate, I'm not looking to get scouted by the WWE, and I'm, in the same way, I'm not looking to make any runs for any UFC titles or anything at my age and stage. But I said I'm going to go back and hopefully have a handful of bouts myself as a sort of a swan song for the career. I'll probably call it the soon-to-be Glue Tour or something like that, right? But I also, because my little boy, he's 5 now, and he started to get into what I do, and he likes wrestling. And he said, Daddy, have you ever done any of this? And I'm like, actually, no, I haven't. I've done like literally everything else under the sun. Yeah. But I would just feel that Dave, I've nearly lost my life twice, right? So I've had some very real moments to reassess everything. And I think if that day comes when I'm about to shuffle off this mortal coil and I haven't hit anyone with a steel chair, I'm going to sorely regret that, right? So we've talked about doing a white collar show, hopefully, which is, maybe me, some of the guys from the gyms, so they got backgrounds and whatever, the stunt work or whatever, and put something together. That would be fantastic. I'm well up for doing that, mate. And that has to be done for my bucket list. We've talked about our wow moments, respectively, but I think I need to have a couple in a pro wrestling ring so that I can shuffle off this mortal coil with peace, knowing that I've hit someone with a steel chair at least once in my life, hopefully repeatedly. we'll talk more about that in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. 'Cause I'd love to make that happen for you. I really would.
That has
So we can
no,
do.
that has to happen. I've got realistically, whether it's fight choreography on screen, on film, whether it's real life competitive combat sport, or whether it's pro wrestling. I don't know, but I've maybe got 4 years left in me, I would say, as an estimate, judging by my daily pain levels and my x-rays, which are less and less favourable by the year, but we're still going, we're still mind over matter, Dave. But before I, like I say, end up being used for glue, we're going to make that happen. So that's my own personal, aspirations for the near future and whatever. So, question for yourself: you toying with the idea of coming back in the ring at all, ever, or?
So I'll tell you what I told like the last 3 different promoters who've asked me that same question.
Go on.
And that's, so I've hit all my goals. I've not no big goal in wrestling anymore. So the only way I'd get involved again is if A, it was something really fun and interesting that I would enjoy doing, and B, it's something that helps someone else. So if I'm coming in to work with or do something with somebody that's going to help them, I'd do it. If I'm coming in and all I'm doing is filling up a spot that some aspiring young wrestler can do, I'm not helping anyone. I'm just helping myself, and I'm not getting anything out of the end of it. Okay. So that's what I want out of it. So I would get in the ring and I would love to perform again, but it has to be for more than just my own personal lols.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave. You can help me. You can help me fulfill my bucket list and put on something that my kids can go to, because there's no way in hell I'm bringing them to an MMA fight or a bare knuckle fight at 5 years old and traumatizing for life. But wrestling's good. Wrestling we can do. So you can help me fulfill my my bucket list and hopefully impress my kids. But also at the same time, obviously we've discussed this. We'll probably be looking to do this for some sort of charity. And I know we've both discussed Mind, which is a mental health charity. We both, for a serious moment, we've both known people and lost people through suicide. And so firstly, ask for help. And secondly, if we can chuck a bit of money to the people providing the help, I think there is no more noble cause. So hopefully that ticks those boxes for you, Dave, on that side of things. So hopefully see on that. But, right, this just brings me up to my last question really nicely. Past, present, or future, right? Definitely go present, because we're talking about someone that would potentially bring you back. But also you can have one from the past or the future as well. Future? Don't know how that works. One from the past. Who would you love to work an angle with? What would bring you out of retirement, right?
If we're talking ultimate bucket list, Chris Jericho. Yeah. He was one of my absolute favourites. And a lot of my shtick was kind of borrowed from him and modified a little bit. So President Jericho, definitely. And I think he's just had this kind of I want to say second coming, but it's like a third or fourth coming really at AEW at the moment. He's doing fantastic.
It's entertaining to watch. Yasmin's stitches. I mean, he's great in the ring still, but his promos are just absolutely hilarious. It's brilliant.
The Rock.
Yeah, obviously.
Definitely. The Rock, absolutely. Don't know. And it's hard. I can't really say future because I don't know. I can't see into the future. I don't know who's going to be a wrestler.
No, Dave. I think that was me being hit in the head too many times. I don't know why I said past, present, or future. It's just one of those things I've been saying. Basically, anyone of all time, so anyone that's active now or anyone from the past, even if they're no longer with us, physically, is there anyone that you would have really
one actually? So there's a guy who works for me at the moment who's been he's been getting a lot of kind of social media attention recently. A guy called Spud.
Oh yeah. Okay.
British wrestler who. Drake Maverick, I believe his name
Drake
is.
Maverick is now.
And there's a big thing recently because they kind of let him go in the middle of the COVID thing. And he's booked for a tournament for them, and it's a bit kind of confusing for him, and it's not a great kind of time. But he's a guy that I knew and was around a lot when I first started wrestling, and we kind of the British team was building, and we never actually worked a proper match together. There was a couple as you do when you travel around British wrestling, you do a lot of rumbles and battle royals. And there was one particular rumble for a company in Morecambe where he was the big character good guy, and I was the big character bad guy. Kind of, I'd not worked a lot for this company at this point, but they brought me in, and I was like a known entity anyway. So he was out first, and I was out second, and the whole room was like, oh, because it was Spud and it was Dave Rayne. We had this really cool little thing like planned for the first 2 or 3 minutes before anyone else got in. But the crowd heat was that much, the crowd were giving us that much that it was stupid of us to do anything and kill it. So we ended up basically just posing and messing around with each other for 3 minutes. Or longer before we could get started because the crowd were just into us being in the ring. And then the guy running it was like, we'll do a thing with you. And then I think at that point, I can't remember why, but there was a reason why he no longer, he might have moved on. I think that might have been the point where he got his contract and he moved on actually. And he went to TNA for a while. But ultimately, never got a match or to work a program with him. And that would have been amazing. Just because, again, he's a guy that's just full. But for me, wrestling's about personality. It's all about personality and character. And he's just full of it. And he's this 5'5" guy, you know what I mean? Like, he's got just the presence and the persona of someone twice his size. Yeah, he's just, and he's, again, like, great guy, you know, like, we're not exactly best mates or anything, but there's never been a time when I've been around him in wrestling and I haven't enjoyed it. And I think that says a lot about, you know, because with wrestling, you travel and it's a different group of guys every night that you're working with. So you get like a group of friends who maybe you work with a lot, but you need to be able to kind of bond with people very quickly. Otherwise, it can get quite lonely very quickly as well. And he was just a really cool guy. And yeah, I feel like there was a lot of potential, a lot of fun could have been had. Unfortunately, just circumstances, it never happened. But yeah, if I could make that happen again, that'd be fantastic. It'd be so much fun.
That's awesome, Dave. That's awesome. I mean, like for myself on screen, if I could do anything ever in anything featuring Jackie Chan, that would just be awesome. Even if it was like, you know, I hold the bags, just be an extra, you know what I mean? That'd be fine. Because I've watched him like forever. So that would be my sort of bucket list on screen.
Green thing, that would be pretty cool.
Or whatever. You want to say, mate?
That would be pretty cool, Jackie Chan.
It would be awesome. I've done okay for myself. I mean, when I went on Into the Badlands recently, that was starring Daniel Wu. Daniel Wu's worked with Jackie Chan in several things. He had a featured fight with him in Around the World in 80 Days, and which is a comedy thing and it's cool. But he's worked with him quite a bit, and he had half a Jackie Chan stunt team on there. I've also, like I said, I've trained with Bill Superfoot Wallace. So the Jackie Chan connection, he fought him at the end of The Protector. For the Village that we were on, Julian Sands, who played the villain in the episode where we had the boxing booth, and this will wrap the interview up, by the way. But Julian played the bad guy in a couple of martial arts movies. Actually, he was in Blood and Bone with Michael Jai White, which is a badass movie, so cool. But also The Medallion with Jackie Chan, and Lee Evans is in that. And so it's weird. It's like I'm kind of in those circles. It's like it could happen. You and Jericho, it could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we shall see. So that would be our sort of fanboy geeking out moments, you know, in a professional sense. And finally, you have done a little bit of the screen fight choreography with yourselves. You're hoping, and I'm hoping very much that you come down and do a bit more. I'm also definitely going to pull you down for a bit of training on the pro wrestling side, as we have done in the past with my stunt lads, and discuss all the various crossovers and things that we have in these interviews. But last thing I'm going to ask you tonight, mate, and we'll call it a day. How did you enjoy that experience? How does it compare, you know, going on the camera compared to the live audience and the pro wrestling? I know that particular scene you did, we had a big crowd, so you still got that live sort of vibe. So it's not like being on a closed set with like 4 people or whatever, a couple of cameramen. But any thoughts on that? And would you like to do a bit more and go for that?
Yeah, no, I'd love to do more. It was very interesting. It's a lot of fun. It was like a completely different experience. So obviously, like, I got to meet Ray, which was very eye-opening.
And John Sim, and you're a massive Doctor Who fan. I remember that. That was cool.
Yeah, John Sim was really cool. So that, for me, the whole experience, the first day really was when we did the training day at the gym.
Yeah.
And that was just a completely new kind of experience. And that was a lot of fun for me because it was a lot of learning new techniques and new things like that and stuff. And then the day on the set was an interesting one, mainly because we got there at like 8 o'clock in the morning and then we just sat there for like 11 hours until they needed us. And it was like, and we're in like a cricket club somewhere, wasn't it? I was just waiting in the
Hayfield
pavilion.
Cricket Club. Yeah, it was.
Hayfield Cricket, I was waiting in the pavilion, but we were waiting because we had to be kept out of the way. We were waiting in like the main green room with all like the main actors and stuff. So I'm sat over in a corner just reading a book, just trying to keep out of the way. I look up, like, yeah, John Simmons just looking at me like, "You're right there, mate." I was like, "Hi, yes, I'm fine. How are you?"
Who did he play in Doctor Who, mate? I can't remember. Who did he play in Doctor Who?
Master, he was the bad guy. So he's like the evil Time Lord.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they were pretty cool. It was nice got chatting with like the main actors because they were like, "What you know, why aren't you outside with the rest of the extras? Why are you in here?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing a specific boxing scene and stuff." I had a big moustache at the time, so I had a big beard and we shaved it down, and they were going on about how they thought it was awesome that my moustache was real and stuff, you know.
Oh, mate, I don't know if you remember, but they made me shave the goatee, keep the tash, and they
Yeah,
put a wig on me, and I just
remember.
looked like a sexual predator. It wasn't.
It was amazing. It was
If I
brilliant.
never
But
ever wanted to have sex with a woman again, that's all I got to do. You know what I mean? That was pretty special. We all had a good look going on that day, I think. But
yeah,
I enjoyed that. Yeah.
And I had this costume on with the braces.
Yeah, man.
The braces and stuff, and I on all day, and it was a bit tight because I was all a bit stocky, and it was fine, just managed it, and then climbing into the ring, and the whole thing snapped and fell off me, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? I've been in this for 11 hours."
And now it goes, yeah.
Taped it all together for me, and I was like, "It's pretty good." And then I was only, I think, it's like maybe like a second of footage of me on the show.
Yeah, but
it was good.
It was one of my favourite bits that you pulled the old the Lloyd Honeyghan wind up, didn't you? You know, being overly cocky and confident before getting sparked out by the champion, the boxing champion played by Daniel Ezra. And I love that. And The Village is notoriously dark. I mean, it's a really, really good series. The first season was so heavy, though, that they put a little bit of the entertainment in the second, like a bit of spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down kind of thing. And I just thought that was one of my favourite little bits. And you got by far, even just a couple of seconds, I saw the director and the DOP and you got by far the biggest reaction of that day because they didn't know what was coming. And not just that, but the whole crowd, after they'd done their bit, you know, everyone was falling about laughing. It was a cool little moment, definitely.
Yeah, span me out, wasn't it? I did the big spin out bump. And
it was great.
But no, I'd love it. No, if there's ever opportunity, if you ever need someone to come in and suplex someone on the show, you let me know.
Always. You know what, Dave? I will write that in somewhere. I will make that happen. I will definitely get you down for the lads and myself, do a bit of training. Hopefully, we can maybe, you know, kill two birds with one stone and sort of combine that with at some point as part of the training for maybe a white collar show. Because I'll tell you what, I think as well, what we were saying for Mind, after the situation that's gone off now and the way that everybody has been so massively effective, I think they're going to need, I think that could be a well-needed injection for them, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
As well as, you know, for our own sort of sanity and enjoyment, because I'm
a project for everyone running. Everyone will be a bit better for having something to focus on, and then you will,
I need to get me through this lockdown so I can get up every morning, I can train, and I can know that in a few months I will be hitting someone around the head with a steel chair. I just need to know that will happen. It will motivate me massively.
See what we can do.